Hello, you're watching a new edition of World Insight. I'm your host, James Chow. If you watch us regularly, you'll know exactly what's coming up because we have 30 minutes of news analysis as we look back at the 7 days gone by. Well, let's turn first to Washington, where China and the US wrapped up their first round of the Strategic and Economic Dialogue on Tuesday. Now, it used to be called the Strategic Economic Dialogue and has gone all the way to the Strategic and Economic Dialogue, adding that one little word may not sound like much, but many are hoping the upgrade it signifies will help them in the long run.
As Lei Huaiqin walks into the studio at China Central Television, he's mulling a long speech.
I think the basis for this decision should be based on the merit of the case itself.
Lei is the managing director of GT Tire, a global manufacturer with headquarters in Shanghai. For the past few months, he's had a lot on his mind.
GT is a tire manufacturer. One of the topics from the strategic and economic dialogue we care about most is trade. China produced 130 million tires in 2008. 60% of them were for export, and of those, 60% were sent to the US.
On June 18th, the U.S. International Trade Commission issued a ruling against China's tire manufacturers. It said increased exports from China are hurting U.S. tire makers. The 4-2 ruling marks a victory for the United Steelworkers Union, which filed a complaint with the Trade Commission in April. The union argued that China more than tripled its tire exports to the U.S. to 46 million tires between 2004 and 2008, putting more than 5,100 workers out of a job. The Commission has recommended that President Barack Obama impose stiff additional duties on passenger vehicle and light truck tires from China. 55% in the first year, 45% in the second year, and 35% in the third year. Lei tells the other side of the story.
GT currently employs some 24,000 workers. The additional tariffs will put at least 2,000 of them out of work. Of course, we will find ways to avoid this, but still some of the losses are inevitable.
And that's only one piece of the whole picture in China. For both governments, it's all about jobs. 9.5% of Americans are out of work, the highest rate in 26 years. And in China, exports have been the sole means to keep millions employed. Such is the nature of the U.S.-China relationship today. And, as the U.S. President says, that's why their strategic and economic dialogue is important.
The current crisis has made it clear that the choices made within our borders reverberate across the global economy. And this is true not just in New York and Seattle, but in Shanghai and Shenzhen as well. That is why we must remain committed to strong bilateral and multilateral coordination. And that is the example we have set by acting aggressively to restore growth, to prevent a deeper recession, and to save jobs for our people.
When the U.S. and China established diplomatic relations 30 years ago, it was far from clear what the future would hold. In 1979, China's gross domestic product stood at a mere $176 billion, a fraction of the U.S. of $2.5 trillion. Travel and communication presented a challenge, with a few unreliable telephone lines and no direct flights. Today, China holds more than $800 billion of U.S. Treasury bonds. It is America's third largest export market. Thousands of emails and phone calls cross the Pacific Ocean on a daily basis. In a joint letter to the Wall Street Journal, U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner stressed the importance of the S&ED. They said few global problems can be solved by the U.S. or China alone, and few can be solved without the U.S. and China together. Presidents Hu Jintao and Barack Obama initiated the S&ED on April 1st. It's an upgrade from the previous strategic dialogue and strategic economic dialogue. The strategic dialogue was initiated by Hu Jintao and George W. Bush in 2004. Its focus was strategic matters of mutual concern, such as the issue of nuclear proliferation. The dialogue has been held 6 times. The strategic economic dialogue came later, in 2006. It was inaugurated by Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson and Vice Premier Wu Yi. The dialogue, which focused on exchange rate, has been held 5 times. Chinese analysts say a combination of the 2 frameworks has resulted in 3 major differences.
The new mechanism is different in 3 aspects. First, the SNED raises the profile of issues formerly discussed at the senior dialogue to the cabinet level on the U.S. side. Second, 150 senior Chinese officials attended the meetings, bringing it to a government-wide participation. Finally, a wider range of issues was discussed, such as climate change, the DPRK, Iran, and trade.
During the 2-day dialogue, officials addressed challenges and opportunities on a wide range of bilateral, regional, and global topics of immediate and long-term strategic and economic interest. The 2 sides confirmed that President Barack Obama will visit China later this year. They agreed to expand military exchanges at all levels. And on the economic front, they focused on the international financial crisis. Representatives from both sides were enthusiastic about the new format and its significance.
What has taken place over the past 2 days is unprecedented in U.S.-China relations. The meetings we have just concluded represent the largest gathering ever of top leaders from our 2 countries. The range of issues covered was unparalleled, and the result is that we have laid the foundation for a positive, cooperative, and comprehensive relationship for the 21st century.
What has happened proves, and history will continue to prove in the future, that the decision made by our 2 presidents to conduct such dialogue is absolutely right and important. Many years from now, when we look back, we will understand better its importance.
But many observers say the first round of the SNED only allows both sides to get their feet wet. The true value will come over time.
Although some breakthroughs have been made at this year's meeting, the essence of this mechanism lies in its continuity. The SNED is a way to begin an interaction. It sets out an outline on the strategic level, and many of the issues will be addressed separately. It's as if U.S. and China are on the same boat. The direction has been set, and now it is up to the officials to pull the oars.
While expressing cautious optimism, critics say China and the U.S. have minimized their disputes over issues such as the huge trade gap and soaring U.S. budget deficits. And people at the center of these disputes, like Lai Huai-chin, are still waiting. Analysts believe as the SNED develops, more and more such issues will be put on the table. And this should enable more and more people like Lai to benefit from the closer cooperation between the 2 countries.
Well, events and mechanisms such as these, the China and the US are striving to seek a new balance. The goal is distant, but as analysts say, the launch of the dialogue is unprecedented in itself. It demonstrates that both Beijing and Washington are working hard and together to explore a new path for growing trust. That's the foundation on which to build long-term cooperation. But up next, we'll look at India's powerful dreams. This is World Insight. Join us again for that.